Hey cycling community, this is Steve, Grusis Cycling Greek, and welcome to day one of the X Block. Now the X Block is a training block that I do between Christmas and New Year's. I've done that every year for quite a few years. Now when designing a training block, the first thing you have to do is have a goal in mind. And you don't have any other goals because then that's where you can get in trouble. And we'll be talking about that in a bit. So the way I do my goals, because of the goals that, because of the timing and all that I have, is I look at it as a finals to your semester while introducing a little bit of the curriculum for next semester. Okay, so I'm signing up for a race that I need to warm up for. So I'll see you there. The way I'm going to do these 10 episodes is along with talking about what's going on that particular day, I'm going to focus on a particular subject. A number of those subjects are going to be health-oriented, and they're not going to be what you ordinarily hear in a bike-related YouTube video. The main subject for today's video is going to be the training block itself and what I'm looking to accomplish. But first, let's talk about today's race. So we have about 48 people in this race. This is a 14.7 mile with about 820 feet of climbing. This particular category ranges from the race points of 180 to 350. I have 309 race points. I am also 69 years old. We have 48 riders in this race. My minimum goal with these races is to finish in the top half. As you can see by the little insert map in the upper right hand corner, things are spread out. I am toward the front, so I am relatively comfortable. This is the first time in a long time that I've been pretty fresh for a Swift race. The reason I'm fresh is twofold. One is that I always want to take a bunch of rest before coming into a large training block. And the second is I pretty much killed myself on this ride Saturday, in which it was supposed to be totally endurance, but it turned out to be quite eventful. I have that video linked in the description below. Be sure you check it out after this one. I'm not familiar with this course at all. Having 820 feet of climbing in 14 or 15 miles didn't seem that bad, but when it was all said and done, I wish there was about 200 to 300 feet less climbing. Jumping ahead a bit, well before we got to this first climb, our pack had whittled down to about 24, so that right there puts me in the top half unless something happens to me later on in this race. Not to be one that rests on my laurels, I decided to cut that in half, and so now I'm looking for a top 12 finish. I have no idea how long this climb goes, but we're about a third of the way into this race, and we've only done about 10% of the climbing. My goal is to be with someone by the time I get to the top. Now, this being the first climb, my legs will still be pretty good, even though I'm sure there's a lot lighter people here and certainly younger. So while I'm suffering on this climb, let's talk a little more about what I'm looking to accomplish in this training block. To give you a better idea, let's go back in time a bit. At the end of the last racing season, I had done a lot of short intervals, a lot of race type of stuff, and not a lot of endurance. In fact, my endurance had waned. So coming into the off season, my main goal was to get my endurance going again. And my climbing too, to get ready for this climbing event that was happening about 3-4 weeks after my last race. You can check out my channel for that video too. That event was called the Grizzly Century. After that, I pretty much stopped climbing and focused on flatland work because my flatland work had waned in these last few years. I did a lot of endurance and a lot of tempo, and this last month I started doing sweet spot. For this 10-day block, I'm looking to do one long/hard day and one very short/easy day. So the short days could be easy or could be a Swift race. The long days could be either long or they could be something shorter that's more intense. By the time we get to the top, our group of 24 is now no more. We have 4 in the front by about 11 seconds. We have another 5 about 2 seconds ahead of us and ahead of me, and we're catching up to them. We have one rider with me, and then the next closest being about 9 seconds, and a couple after that at 18 seconds. I'm pretty worn right now after that climb. I'm having trouble getting onto those 3 guys, and we're just about there. I'm relying on that rider in front of me, 48-year-old Tom Golbecker from the United States. Eventually, he gets us up there. When we get to the start of the next major climb, we have a little over 8 miles to go, so we have a little halfway to go. We have about 7 riders that are 6 seconds ahead of us. I'm in a chase group of 7. The next rider behind us is about 28 seconds back, and that is Guy Drapeau from Canada. I was good for one long climb, but now that I'm on the second one, we'll see how I fare. Back to the training block discussion. So I mentioned earlier that you should just have one goal. While I do have that goal, I do have a couple other things that I'm keeping an eye on. One is my yearly mileage. So the last few years, I've been doing between 9.5 and 10,000 miles a year. Right now, I'm about 430 miles short of 9,000. The main reason for that is that I've slightly changed the emphasis of my training from purely race training to minimizing the degradation of aging. I switched out some of the miles for introducing running again, because it's been years since I've done any running. I also started swimming, although I haven't swam for at least since the weather's gotten really cold. In an upcoming episode, I'll delve deeper into the old guy training versus racing training. The other thing I'm keeping an eye on is my weight. I've gained weight during this off season. Last season I was racing from a low of 163 pounds, and now I'm 173 pounds. Now, one of the things that I've done differently, at least toward the end of the last season, is I started taking creatine to help with going harder when doing my squats and deadlifts during the off season. So I have put on some muscle, but not 10 pounds of muscle. Creatine, at least the side effects of creatine of the type that I'm taking, causes you to retain water. So I just haven't gained muscle and water. I've also gained fat. In fact, I'm going to guess that most of the weight that I've gained of that 10 pounds is fat. Let's quickly jump to the action on the screen. So what's happened is that I started reaching my limit and people started just going ahead of me on the climbs. We have a little bit of a respite. I'm going to catch up to a person, hopefully, and maybe some more. But then you see the climbs going up again, and so that's going to put me under stress. Obviously, I'd love to catch up to all those ahead of me, but what I'm going to try and do is get to the top with somebody so I can at least have one other person to work with. All right, let's get back to my weight. At the beginning of December, I made a concerted effort to lose fat. I wanted to be able to do this without losing power. So basically, I ate a little less, and I moved a little more. Now, at a little over 3.5 weeks later, my weight is just below 173, but I'm looking a little leaner in the mirror. Now, when I say leaner, what I really mean to say is I'm looking less fat. Looking lean but being heavier may not do me any favors on the climbs, especially since some of that muscle weight went to my upper body. I may catch a break when I stop taking the creatine after the season starts and lose a little water weight. Jumping ahead to a little over 4 miles to go, I've been solo for quite a while. The situation is that I'm chasing somebody that's 17 seconds ahead of me that I'm sure I'm not going to catch. And I was just caught by Janzika from Slovakia, and she is 50 years old. And we are being chased by a couple others at 33 seconds back. Janzika and I are sitting at 10th and 11th place, still under my new modified goal of coming in at 12th or better. I fear I'm going to have a hard time hanging on to her, so I need to hang on to her for as long as I can so that those behind me will not catch me when I get dropped by her. With a little over 2.25 miles to go, we catch Nathan Shank, 47-year-old from United States. Or rather, it's Janzika that catches him with me on her wheel. I'm actually having a hard time staying on her wheel. I'm looking at those behind me. They're now about 47 and 50 seconds behind me. And with over 2 miles to go, I'm hoping I can get to the finish before those two catch me, because I'm sure I'm going to get dropped. It was hard to figure out Nathan's strength, but Janzika was definitely stronger than the both of us. The best I can hope for is time it so that I'm able to get on Janzika's wheel when she pulls away and leave Nathan behind. Something I hadn't noticed till I put this video together is that the profile for this section of the race course is actually in the little insert map in the upper right hand corner. Now, if I had known that, I would have known that there was a climb coming up. But I figured that there was a climb coming up because currently we're at about 670 feet, and you may remember that this race goes about 820 feet. So there's some ugly stuff that's coming for me. Jumping ahead to the start of the final climb, we're still together. It's a little over 2 kilometers to go, and the next riders behind me are now about 55 and 1 minute behind. So I think I'm safe, but this is a long climb and it's fairly steep in sections. At this point, Nathan puts in an attack. I'm not going with him. This is too early in the climb, and I'm hoping that he'll burn himself out. Then I'll be able to pass him up. I'm guessing Janzika is thinking the same thing. Turns out what she's actually thinking is that let him get a little distance, then she will just scurry up to him. They'll go off, and I'll be by myself. And that was exactly the case. So now I'm looking behind me, and I see that guy from Canada is about 52 seconds behind me. We have 1 mile to go, and I think I'm pretty safe, but I'm still keeping the pressure on when I can. I get to the top of this final climb with about 800 feet to go in this race. Guy has worked his way up to about 41, 42 seconds behind me, but a lot of that is because I let up, figuring I was safe and that I still had another 9 days of racing to go. So I was able to finish in the top 25% at 11th place. Speaking of weight, after this race came Christmas meal and Christmas dessert, and more than one serving. I hope I don't gain weight during this 10-day block. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. Look for the rest of the episodes coming up. And as always, remember, comment, like, subscribe. The Cycling Greek.